A lot of people, and when I say a lot of, I really mean too many for me to think of it as something sensible. But a lot of people are angry with Timothy Chalamet, and I'm before I go on to say what I'm going to say, I'm not saying people can't observe things that happen with celebrities or get upset about certain things that happen with celebrities, but I just have a hard time fathoming what Timothy Chalamet said or did that was to the level of offense of the outrage that was poured upon him, right? Because he didn't say anything that could be classified as hate speech. He didn't say anything that was derogatory in nature, right? And he didn't spend like an hour long just going off on people in the fields of ballet and opera, right? From what I recall, maybe my memory is disserving me, but from what I recall, he basically said something along the lines of he doesn't want to be a part of art forms that are dying and that people are kind of more so participating in for the purpose of just keeping that thing alive because they specifically have a passion for it, right? He seemed like he was trying to express that he wanted to use his ability and talent in a field or region that is has an importance in the modern age. That seemed to be what he was trying to express, right? Like I don't know, it was just weird to me. Like it would almost be like, say, if like among rappers, if there was like a rapper that made more modernized sounding rap music, let's say even like Kanye West or somebody like him, right? But it would be like if people got in a tissy fit about Kanye West saying he doesn't want to make boom bap, old school hip hop because it's a dying form of the genre and he wants to break new ground in the genre and and be celebrated for his contributions to the modern aspects of the genre, right? That's how it almost seems, right? So, and this is why I want to go over the truth about people who are like this, right? Because there's so many things that are going on in the world. Right, like it'd be one thing say if this happened like in the midst of like the pandemic and all that, right? But there's literally like a couple of days before this, there was a school in Iran with around 140 something little girls in it that got bombed. Quite a few of those little girls died, right? And not saying that that should be the biggest major issue, but what I'm saying is when I see more people get into a tissy fit about what's going on with Timothy Chalamet than things like that, or things with the war in general, or with issues that economically affect you, right? It looks a little silly. It looks a little silly, right? And it reeks of comfort, right? Because I think people don't understand a lot of these things in the world of entertainment. Like there's people who do understand this, and maybe people who don't know this but will understand this when I express this. But in the ancient times, like in the ancient Roman times, they used the Colosseum, right? And not just their society, but several societies would use entertainment uh, to not just distract the people, right? But to basically use it as a measuring stick to see how things are going amongst the people and how much control they have in regards to what's going on with the people, right? Because societies were harder to control during those times. There wasn't no internet, so they couldn't like see everything that people are commenting. They couldn't go into people's personal messages and have details on what they're talking about. We didn't have cell phones that we were having conversations on that could be tapped by police and all that, right? So it was a lot harder to keep control of a society, right? So they had to have certain things in place to keep the society under control and to measure how angry, how close the people may be to revolting, right? The ignorance of that is what led to things like the French Revolution, right? Because they were so out of touch with the people, they swore everything was fine with the people, right? So now things like this is what kind of things like the Timothy Chalamet thing, right? And the whole hubbub about what happened with him. Those kinds of things, it kind of runs those ideas into my mind, and it makes me think like, okay, this is the reason why things aren't changing in regards to the housing crisis, right? Because the powers that be, the people that run things, right? They look at the because you have to remember we have AI now and all that kind of stuff, right? Granted, I think they've been had AI and they just they're just releasing it to us recently. It's how quite a few things go when you look through the history of technology being released out to the public. Usually, there was a military grade of that technology that was being used before it was handed to the public, right? But you know, they can use AI and use it to basically run through apps like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, right? And go through all the comments, right? And see what's the general gist of what people are feeling. What's the general gist of what people are saying, how they feel about things that are going on, right? So when they go and they see that people are making, on average, because they can probably get an average out the inflammatory comments, like comments that show that people are clearly upset about something, right? And how upset they are about said thing, right? When they use their military grade AI and they go over all the comments and they see that overall people are more angry about things like what happened with Timothée Chalamet, or people are more angry about like any celebrity thing that you can think of, or any viral videos and stuff like that going on with celebrities. When they see that people are more angry and concerned about that, and there's not that much anger towards the housing crisis and all that kind of stuff, they can look at that and say, okay, look, we don't need to put no money into fixing the housing issue. We don't need to put no money into fixing education, right? Now, if they used their military grade AI and they saw that there were people who were just pushing those kinds of things to the side, and majority of people didn't really care, and the angry comments were getting amped up more about things like housing and education, and there wasn't no division in the comments, and people were more in agreement, and the anger's in agreement, that's when you'd see them start to change things. If they were using their AI and they were seeing that people in mass, every color, every creed, every orientation, that there was more, both a combination of agreement and anger amongst all these different groups and demographics about things like education and economics and how that's affecting people currently and the future and the job market, that's the only way you would see changes in those areas, right? If they're looking and they see that there's more anger towards Timothée Chalamet, why would they change these things, right? And this is why I get into the things that are like kind of the what I say is the truth about people who are angry about these kinds of things, right? And it could be several things, right? But the most glaring one to me is that people are comfortable, regardless of the kinds of things that people like to complain about in regards to, like, uh issues like I just said, like the economics and housing. When they look and see that more people on average are more angry and more divided on celebrity issues, what that registers to the powers that be is that things are not that bad yet, right? Because just like we have to spend money on things, the powers that be, they have things that they have to spend money on, whether we agree with it or not, right? That war is costing money. The other wars being fought by allies of America is costing money, right? And that all needs to be funded, right? Things in regards to the government, like their meetings and their expenses, that costs money. Things like their travel expenses, it costs money, right? And I think it's a no-brainer that all that costs money, but I'm just going over it to point out that if they had to choose between spending money on fixing things in regards to what's affecting the populace economically, or spending it on things that's going to allow them to acquire more power, right, and to acquire more control, right, they're going to choose the power and the control. They're going to choose that every time, right? Like, it's almost like, say, if you have let's say a parent, right, a parent of two to four children, right? If their children aren't crying, right? If they know they just fed them and the child has ate, right? Uh, and let's say the child comes and the child says they want a toy from the store, right? If everything else the child has and it seems like it's going to be fine, and the child has a TV and they're going to be entertained, the parent is probably going to deny buying that toy. They're going to say, no, you don't need that toy, right? And even if the kid starts crying and throwing a fit about it, the parent is probably going to be less likely to buy the toy because they're going to look at it and be like, yeah, I don't know about that. You seem like you're kind of fine, right? Now, especially let's say within like an hour, 2 hours time, they check on the child, and let's say the parent was actually even thinking about going to get the toy. Maybe they're like, yeah, this is my child. I love them. Maybe I should just get them that toy. But if they go and they see the child on their phone laughing at stuff on TikTok, or they watching the TV and they just laughing they butt off, or they're arguing with their sibling about one of the toys that they already have, right? The parents gonna sit there and go, "Oh, you don't need that new toy. You're entertained enough. You're good. You're fine. You're comfortable, right?" And it's like the some people, and there's people who do recognize these kinds of things because otherwise, what I'm about to say wouldn't be like a thing. But there's people who you see make the comment of first world problems under things that are like non-issues or things that only people who are very comfortable in countries like America, Canada, and England that people in those spaces seem to care about, right? Like I think I've even seen people. Actually, no, I'm not gonna say I think I know. I know I've seen people commenting in comment threads about the whole Timothy Chalamet thing, and basically saying like, "Yo, there's bigger issues going on in the world. We have wars. We have this. We have that. Right?" And people just telling them like, "Oh, go find that thread. Then this is not the place for that." Right? Like we think about these real issues here. This Timothy Chalamet guy needs to be stopped, right? And I can understand it. Say if Timothy Chalamet had some history of being a hateful person, or just interview after interview, he was just downing every other kind of like art form in the world of acting. You know, except movie acting, right? I can understand if that was the case if he did that. That's not the case, right? So, like I said, the first thing to see about these people who are mad about Timothy Chalamet is that these are people who reek in comfort. They are comfort to their own poison. They are comfortable to their own detriment. Is what I mean to say, right? Now, next off, I would say that there's a bit of envy and jealousy afoot. I think at least, right? Because particularly among the generations of people in the age group of Timothy Chalamet and a little bit older, that being what's called millennials and Gen Z, right? People within those age groups were raised in a different kind of world than the people that came before them, right? In the world before us, things were more segregated and designated, and people were more so just understood life is life, and whatever gets handed to them is what gets handed to them, right? Kind of thing. Now, the people who were born in the late 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, we were all raised in a world where we were told that we could be what we want to be, anything is possible, right? No matter how many of you want to be a billionaire, every single one of you can be a billionaire, right? You're the kids of America. You're the kids of the new world, right? This is what Martin Luther King died for, right? You all can have dreams. But and also seeing things like Obama getting elected kind of like solidified that kind of idea in people's mind, like, whoa, even this black guy can become president. We all can become president, right? All these kinds of I wouldn't say foolish, but foolhardy forms of thinking, right? And I think as we're faster approaching a time where everybody within our age groups, right, the people born into the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s, as we're starting to hit the middle ages, right, of like 40s and 50s, we're going down a boulevard of broken dreams for a lot of people, right? Because there's a lot of people who thought they would be something more, a lot of people who thought they'd be something better, a lot of people who thought they'd own their own home by now and have the whole package of like the kids and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think there's envy and jealousy afoot for quite a few people online, particularly if it's people that come in some kind of form that you don't like, right? Or so there's tends to be, I think, an envy and a jealousy towards popular figures in media, right? And an anger towards them, right? Because and people tend to want to live vicariously through people who they like look up to and stuff like that. So when it's in a form and a package of somebody who they don't like, right? I think that can cause that to be this kind of anger towards the person naturally, right? So, because there are certain people you can even see when they come and they say it, they're like, "Oh yes, he needs to be humbled. This is the time," right? Like this kind of weird lynch mob thing that happened around Timothy Chalamet for something that is really only offensive to people who dance in ballet and sing opera. Like I can understand people who dance in ballet and sing opera being upset. I guess like I can get that, right? But there's people who have nothing to do with that world, right? There's people who don't even have no involvement in film and movies or anything like that. They just hate Timothy Chalamet, all right? And sometimes I think there's a thing that causes even beyond maybe the envy and jealousy, right? Because envy and jealousy, you when you kind of like reverse it and see where it comes from, right? You, I don't want to make it like a material thing. I'm pretty sure there's like rich and famous people who get envious and jealous of other people, but no matter what, it does tend to come from a place of lack, right? Like you have people who, due to the things that they lack in life and the things that they don't have, and particularly like as I expressed among our generations, where more of us than ever are living at home, as they call it, or living with parents, living with roommates, not earning high wages, right? Or even a livable wage in quite a few cases, right? But due to I think that kind of lacking, I think it kind of creates that kind of air, right? And it's really like in mass confusion in regards to that, right? I just and anybody who gets offended by things I was saying, they probably already would have clicked out the video, and I don't really want those kind of fools on my channel anyway. So good riddance. But it's just an interesting thing to look at when there's so many issues, right, that actually affect your life, that actually affect you and the people around you, right? Timothy Chalamet's words didn't hit nobody. It didn't punch nobody. It didn't deny nobody access to greater opportunities, right? And there's people who get more angry about something like that than things that are killing people, things that are destroying people, things that are actually denying marginalized groups access to better lives and uh, a better quality of living, right? To me, it just kind of says something about the westernized, mechanized, modernized world and the reason why the things that are the actual issues for people cease to change, right? Because as I said, these kinds of things, they're kind of, in my eyes at least, they're used as a measuring stick to see and realize what should or shouldn't be changed and what should or shouldn't be adjusted and how the general populace is feeling about what's going on. Because what caused the French Revolution was when things got to the point that people could not eat, right? And the famous quote from, I think her name was Marie Antoinette, right? Whoever was the queen during that time, before the French Revolution kicked off, the famous quote is, "Let them eat cake," right? So, for so long as they see us complaining about things like celebrity drama and celebrity gossip and celebrity news and what this rapper said this and that rapper said that and this person said this and this is something to be angry about, right? So long as they see that that's the case, in their eyes, everything is fine. Because despite all these other bigger issues, you have these issues that don't affect you physically, they don't affect you economically, they don't affect you socially, but just simply because of your emotions, it's the greatest deal in the world, right? If I ran the government, I wouldn't change anything either. Let them eat cake.